Begin today's business, could I remind members that the deadline for submitting nominations and any supporting statements for the Select Committee Chair elections is 4 p.m. today. Questions to the Secretary of State for Education, Bill Esterson.
Question 1, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and with your permission, I will answer questions 1 and 4 together. Qualifications must deliver on our missions, enhancing and spreading opportunity and growing our economy. The last Conservative government botched the rollout of T-levels and defunding. That's why this Labour government has announced a pause and review of qualifications reform to support skills growth, support students and bring certainty where there has been chaos. This short focus review, along with other measures like the curriculum and assessment review and the creation of Skills England, will allow the government to improve skills training, unlock opportunity and harness talent.
Thank you very much. There are a great many opportunities for technicians and engineers in this country. That will only increase with the government's plans for clean energy in particular and its industrial strategy. But we are chronically short of intermediate and advanced level skilled workers in this country. So can the Secretary of State tell us how her plans will ensure that more young people will make the most of the opportunities and that our education system will deliver the qualifications that they need?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. I know how passionate he is about making sure that young people in Sefton and across our country are able to seize the new opportunities of the future. And we are determined to drive forward and make Britain a clean energy superpower. Our reformed growth and skills levy will give businesses greater flexibility and will enable them to take on more young apprentices. And Skills England will allow us to identify the skills gaps in every corner of our country and making sure that we're driving forward on that mission.
Sureena, Brackenridge.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As a former Deputy Head Teacher, I have seen firsthand the impact of the previous government's rush plan to eliminate most BTEC qualifications in the midst of a botched rollout of T-levels. How does my right honourable friend intend to fix the mess that she has inherited and ensure that the diverse aspirations and varied talents of students in Wolverhampton North East are met?
My honourable friend, with her background in education, knows all too well how important it is that all of our young people have the opportunity to achieve and to thrive. She's right, it was a big mess that we inherited, but we've acted swiftly and we're conducting a focused, intense review to make sure that all of our young people have options that are available to them and that we make a success of T-levels.
Tim Farron.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Secretary of State is absolutely right to say the previous government botched the rollout of T-levels. In particular, it was a huge blow to our community in the Lakes and Dales, the failure to deliver the T-level in hospitality in tourism. Her predecessor talked about that being caused by a failure to be able to gain placements within the tourism and hospitality industry. Surely that is something insurmountable. What plan has she got to talk to the hospitality and tourism industry so we can deliver the T-level to communities like mine very, very soon?
The Honourable Gentleman makes an important point about making sure that placements are there, and I'd be happy to make sure that he can have a discussion with the Minister for Skills to make sure that we're addressing the concerns he raises around hospitality.
Rebecca Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Alderman's Tooling in my constituency is one of thousands of employers now investing in the talent of tomorrow. In 5 years' time, does the Minister expect the number of apprenticeships to be higher or lower than today?
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady. I pay tribute to all the businesses across our country who are making sure that providing really high-quality skills training and apprenticeship starts. But what I would say to her is that apprenticeship starts for under 25s have fallen by 38% in the period 2015-16 to 2022-23. It will fall to this Labour government to turn that around.
Alvin Bailey.
Hello. Sorry, my apologies. I want to thank the Secretary of State for her focus on T-levels in particular and for her recognition for the need of a pause. And I back up my right honourable friend for Wolverhampton in her recognition of the botched nature of the rollout, because my right honourable the Secretary of State would recognise perhaps the challenge for many services within our communities, such as the NHS, in their ability to be able to operate, to absorb T-level students effectively, so that these qualifications need to truly give our young people the opportunities that they deserve. Would she meet with me and local FE experts to discuss this?
Called as well. Minister?
Yes, I'd be very happy to meet with my honourable friend. What I would say to him is that in this period of review, we are making sure that we're speaking with employers, with training providers and colleges to make sure that we get this right.
Show us how it's done. Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Thank the Minister for her response to those questions. Minister, one of the things that I know the Minister hasn't direct responsibility for Northern Ireland, but I understand the issue of the apprenticeships in defence and cybersecurity, in the Talis and Spirit and Agri-Food. The opportunities are there for young ladies as there are for men as well. Can I ask the Minister what has been done to ensure that there is a quality of opportunity for all of those, male and female? Thank you.
The Honourable Gentleman makes a very important point about making sure that people from a range of different backgrounds, including young women, see the opportunities that are there. I've had the opportunity to meet with my counterparts in Northern Ireland, and I look forward to working with them to make sure that across the UK we can drive forward on skills growth and opportunities for all of our young people.
Josh MacAlister.
Question number 2, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Reforming children's social care is critical to deliver our opportunity mission to ensure that a child or young person's background does not limit their ambition. The Children's Wellbeing Bill will remove barriers to opportunity and deliver the manifesto commitment on children's social care so all children have a chance to thrive in safe, loving homes.
Minister.
I thank the Minister for the answer, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's just over 2 years since I published the independent review of children's social care commissioned by the previous government. The review called for a radical reset of the whole children's social care system that was urgently needed, and the last government took some modest steps down that track but failed to realise the potential. Since the election, a number of the children, families, care experienced adults who were involved in the review have been in touch with me, sharing their hopes that we'll be able to deliver on the ambition of that review. Can I ask the Minister whether or not the government intends to prioritise the resources that are going to be needed to implement that review in the upcoming spending review?
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for the work that he has done within the independent review of children's social care, which this government is considering as part of its reform programme. Children's social care is a key priority for this government, evidenced by our commitment to the Children's Wellbeing Bill announced in the King's Speech in July, and a full programme for delivery will be produced in order to support this commitment. I would also like to say that we have inherited a challenging set of economic circumstances. However, we are committed to reforming children's social care, and that will be brought forward, as I've already mentioned, in the Children's Wellbeing Bill.
George Freeman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, in Norfolk, as with many areas, we saw in the pandemic some hugely complicated issues around early years, lack of preparation, learning difficulties, which many of our schools are dealing with. Could the Minister reassure me that in this forthcoming budget, there will be real attention paid both to supporting that network, supporting the previous government's introduction of early years, but also integrating better the mental health support, the learning difficulty support and the social care support. In the end, they're children living one life. They need one network of support, surely.
Well, I'd like to thank the honourable member for his explanation of all the various challenges that young people and children experience and face. And if I had a crystal ball, I'd be able to explain in terms of the spending review. But I'm sure as we move forward and as we bring forward the Children's and Wellbeing Bill, it will bring clarity to some of the reforms that this government would like to bring about. But also the spending review will reveal where the budget lies in these things.
Question number 3, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I will answer questions 3 and 23 together with your permission. For too long, universities have been treated as political battlegrounds. This Labour government will treat them as engines of opportunity and growth. On the 26th of July, I published the report of the independent review of the Office for Students and appointed Sir David Behan, who led the review, as interim chair. Under new leadership and with a sharpened remit, the Office for Students will concentrate on securing university futures and putting students first.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I welcome the Secretary of State to her position. Last year, the House of Lords Industry and Regulators Committee presented its report, which was very critical of the OFS. You did not need to read between the lines to understand just how poorly they thought of it. they felt that it was serving neither the students nor the providers. So can I ask the Secretary of State, what plans does she have to reset the relationship with the OFS so that it gives renewed focus to the students it's supposed to represent?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I just thank my honourable friend for all of his work in this important area to make sure that our universities are recognised as a crucial part of how we drive growth in our country. Sir David's review that we published in July is a platform for improvement, and I welcome and accept the core findings of that review. The Government will support the OFS in refocusing on fewer key priorities, doing what is most important for students and universities and doing it well, and we will take the necessary action to support this work.
Ken Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Young people in Western-super-Mare and across our country deserve the very best opportunities. Since 2016, University Centre Western has transformed access to higher education in our town, meaning more can study closer to home, improving access. How will the Labour Government seek to strengthen the Office for Students' strategic objective to widen participation in communities like mine?
I agree very strongly with my honourable friend about the importance of widening participation, and he sets out very clearly how universities are a key part of towns and cities right across our country. Now, the last government wanted to use our world-leading sector as a political football, talking down institutions and watching on as the situation became even more desperate. I've appointed the new interim chair to sharpen the focus of the Office for Students, focus far more on the financial sustainability of the sector, and return universities to being the engines of growth and opportunity that we want to see after 14 wasted years.
Jessie Norman.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am delighted to hear the Honourable Lady talk about engines of growth and opportunity, because that's exactly what universities, when they're well run, are. And in my county, we have a new university, the new Model Institute for Technology and Engineering, which is doing exactly that and offering incredible opportunities for young people to do a master's programme in 3 years, and then, as we're seeing with the new cohort, to go into companies as good as British Aerospace, BAE, Kia, Balfour BT, the Atomic Weapons Establishment and other places. Does the Honourable Lady share my view, and this, by the way, has been assisted by the Office for Students, which granted new degree awarding powers. Does the Honourable Lady share my view that this is a deeply worthwhile enterprise, something that could be replicated around the country, and will she come and visit herself?
Minister.
I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman for raising this. I'd be happy to meet with him to discuss it further.
Shadow Minister James Wall.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. We've seen attempts by hostile states to influence our higher education sector, which the last Conservative government took action to counter. So does the Secretary of State therefore share concern that reports Peking University HSBC Business School in Oxford may be partly operating under Chinese Communist Party rules? And does she expect the Office for Students to investigate this?
The Shadow Minister will know that the Office for Students is independent, but I will make sure that they look very carefully at the concerns that he has set out and address them accordingly.
Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. Question number 5.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Government fully supports academic freedom. Higher education must be a space for robust discussion and intellectual rigour, and it was the Labour Government that enshrined freedom of expression into law. Our recent decision to pause the implementation of further parts of the Freedom of Speech Act was precisely because we believe in academic freedom, and it is therefore crucial that the legal framework is workable. Baroness Smith and the other place and officials are speaking with a range of stakeholders. Their views will form part of our consideration of all options for protecting academic freedom into the future. No options are off the table.
Richard Holden.
I'd like to thank the Secretary of State for that answer and also welcome her to her new position. Can the Secretary of State, though, give the House a cast iron guarantee that when she decided to reverse the Freedom of Speech Act, that she gave no consideration to the consequences of the new freedom of speech duties that the Act imposes on universities in terms of their financial relationship with authoritarian regimes like the People's Republic of China?
Yes, I can give him that assurance, and what I can tell him is that we looked very carefully and very closely at the way in which the legislation was going to operate. I want to make sure that we've got good, strong, workable legislation. I was concerned about what I'd heard from Jewish groups and other minority communities about the unintended consequences that might follow from the legislation. That's why I paused commencement with a view to getting this right, making sure we protect academic freedom, but also avoiding the situation where hate speech is allowed to flourish on campus.
Antoniazzi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to congratulate the Secretary of State on making the hard decisions that are needed in government. And I am very pleased to hear that no options are off the table. But what reassurances can she give me and other women that she will protect female academics such as Jo Phoenix, Kathleen Stock and Selina Todd, that they're not bullied and hounded out of the successful careers in university?
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. Like her, I take it extremely seriously that we have strong freedom of expression within our universities, that students are exposed to a range of views, some of which they might find difficult or don't agree with. That is what makes it so important to have a wide-ranging education. What I can also say to her is that officials will make sure we engage with a wide range of views in this important area as we look at next steps, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it with my honourable friend in more detail.
Shadow Minister Gagan Mahindra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I welcome the Secretary of State to her place? The Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act 2023 would have ensured that universities in England have the tools they need to deal with interference and threats to freedom of speech and academic freedom wherever they originate. Now the Act will no longer be implemented by this government, will the Secretary of State clarify to the House what her alternative plans are to protect academic freedom in the higher educational sector?
The honourable gentleman will know that freedom of expression and academic freedom are incredibly important. There are duties that the Office for Students sets out. Many of these principles are already enshrined in law. But I want to make sure that we get this right. And I'm confident that the honourable gentleman would not want to be in a position where the Act might have opened up the potential for hate speech, including Holocaust denial, to be spread on campus, something that the previous minister in the last government was unable to rule out.
Snell.
Question number 6, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Excluding private special schools, around 50 private schools close each year. There are a range of reasons for closure, including financial viability and departmental action, where schools are not meeting required standards. 1,102 private schools closed between the 11th of May 2010 and the 5th of July 2024. It is also worth noting that the number of pupils in private schools increased in 2023-24, and there has been a net increase of 13 private schools over that period.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and thank the Minister for his answer. St Joe's Preparatory School in Stoke-on-Trent, a small fee-paying independent school, announced it's closing its doors at the end of this year after a period of financial viability questions. So can I ask the Minister what support his department can offer the City Council and parents in Stoke-on-Trent to make sure those children can still access first-class education?
I thank my honourable friend for that question and welcome him back to this place. I know he is a tireless champion for children in his constituency, regularly speaking up on local schools issues. I'm aware of the situation at St Joseph's Preparatory School. Private schools are, of course, businesses responsible for their own finances. However, the department stands ready to assist. This government is committed to high and rising standards in schools, and I hope we can work together to achieve this.
Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Malvern College, Malvern St James's, Breedon School and other schools in West Worcestershire which offer places to children with special educational needs offer not only an important part of our education system but also support the local economy. Can he state from the dispatch box, please, that he does not want to see the closure of any of these important independent schools in West Worcestershire?
I thank the right honourable member for her question. This government's ambition is that all children and young people with SEND receive the right support to succeed in their education as they move into adult life. We are committed to taking a community-wide approach, improving inclusivity and expertise in mainstream schools, as well as ensuring special schools cater to those with the most complex needs. Children whose place in private school has been deemed necessary by the local authority will not be affected by the tax changes.
Shadow Secretary of State, Mr Damien Hyde.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And at the start of the new term, we all wish well to everybody for the academic year ahead. But what will ministers say next September to parents who, because of their education tax, find bigger class sizes, more schools full, and fewer having been able to get their first choice school in Bristol, in Bury, in Salford, in Surrey?
May I welcome the Right Honourable Member to his place. I'm very much looking forward to working with him to make sure that every child gets the best start in life. The number of children in private schools has remained steady despite a 20% real terms increase in average private school fees since 2010 and a rise of 55% since 2003. While we cannot predict closures, we will use indicators such as occupancy to monitor this. My department works with local authorities to help them fulfil their duty to secure places.
No law.
Question number 7, Madam Deputy Speaker.
This government will unleash the green skills we need to make Britain a clean energy superpower and spread sustainable growth, economic growth across the country. Businesses can already benefit from the Level 6 Mine Management Degree Apprenticeship, and we are establishing Skills England, which will work across the country and across the government with employers, local partners, unions and other experts to ensure we have the highly trained workforce that England needs.
No law.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for her response. In Cornwall, apprenticeships in the critical minerals industry are of critical importance, creating great work for the next generation, for fostering innovation and supercharging our mission for clean energy. Could the Secretary of State outline what steps are being taken to expand our investment in these apprenticeships and meet the growing skills demand in that industry?
I thank my honourable friend who makes an excellent point on the importance of apprenticeships and skills in creating local opportunities and national prosperity. Skills England will work with employers and other partners to identify the skill needs of the next decade and ensure that the training needed for those skills, including apprenticeships, is accessible through the Growth and Skills Levy.
Dr Alison Gardner.
Right, please, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, with permission, I will answer questions 8, 10, 12, 13, 15 and 25 together. The Conservatives have left a trail of devastation across education, and nowhere is that clearer than in our current SEND system. We know that for too many children and families, the system is just not working. But I give my personal commitment to members across this House that this government will listen to and work with families to deliver reform, improving inclusivity in mainstream schools and making sure that special schools are able to help those with the most complex needs.
Alison Gardner.
Thank you. Last week I visited expert citizens in Stoke-on-Trent. Here people with lived experience of using public services help inform system redesign. Many of my constituents across different councils have reported issues with SEND transport that highlight exactly the importance of listening to people with lived experience. For one example, a single working mother may need to give up her job because she doesn't have a car and doesn't get SEND transport because she's 0.1 miles outside and therefore can't get a child to school. Will the Secretary of State agree with me that SEND transport needs a service rethink, one centred and built on the lived experience of the parents and children who use the service?
Yeah. My honourable friend is right to stress the need to listen to children, families and all of those working in the system in order to deliver reform. And if she'd be able to share with me some more detail, I'd happily take a look at that.
Kevin Bonavia.
Thank you, Madam...
Bonavia, forgive
Thank
me.
you.
Kevin Bonavia.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very grateful to the Secretary of State for her answer, and also to the very helpful response by the Minister and Member for Newcastle North to last week's debate in Westminster Hall on SEND provision in Hertfordshire, led by my honourable friend, the Member for Hitchin. Yeah. As the Minister will recall, there are many heartbreaking experiences faced by children and young people in Stevenage and across Hertfordshire, where waiting times are much higher than the national average. Will the Secretary of State therefore be able to consider a fairer funding settlement for SEND provision in Hertfordshire when she is next able to do so?
Yeah. My honourable friend is right to draw attention to the significant interest in the debate that took place in Westminster Hall, and I think the level of interest today demonstrates the importance of getting this issue right. I know from speaking to my honourable friend that he is concerned about this issue. I agree it is important that there is a fair education funding system that directs funding to where it is most needed. And one aspect of that is the national funding formula, where it comes to allocating high needs funding. We will take our time to look carefully at whether any changes are required, including in Hertfordshire.
Sadiq Al Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I ask my right honourable friend, the Minister, to detail the plans that the Department has to help solve the recruitment problem for SEND professionals, to enable schools to be able to deal with ECHPs in constituencies like mine in North Somerset?
It's certainly the case, Madam Deputy Speaker, that there is a big workforce challenge, and making sure that we have specialists in critical areas is a central part of how we make sure that children and young people can access the support that they need. Our school support staff will play a crucial role in this, and that's why Labour will reinstate the school support staff negotiating body. We will make sure that teachers have more training alongside support staff in order to deliver better support and education for our young people. And we're investing over £21 million this year to train 400 more educational psychologists as well.
Luke Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the statement from the Secretary of State. On doorsteps, in surgeries and over email, countless stories from families across Basingstoke have told me of the obstacles they have to go through just to have the barest acknowledgement of their child's needs, only to go through a similar obstacle course in order for them to be assessed, and then yet again for them to get the help that they are legally entitled to. Can the Minister or the Secretary of State offer families in Basingstoke with experience of this failing system some hope that they can expect better in the future?
I know from when I joined my honourable friend in Basingstoke during the general election campaign that many families there and right across our country were concerned about this issue, and I can give him that commitment. Members on the benches opposite may recall that the previous Education Secretary described the system that she left behind as one that was lose, lose, lose. I agree, we're determined to turn that around, and that's why we have already restructured the Department for Education with much more of a focus on support for children with SEND as part of our schools provision.
Deirdre Costigan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Speech and language support for children with special educational needs and disabilities clearly was not a priority for the previous government. And I've seen recently in my own constituency of Ealing Southall the damage that this has done to local families, with one mum in a recent surgery telling me she just wants her young son to be able to tell her when he is in pain. What steps will the Secretary of State take to ensure that children, like those in my constituency, receive the speech and language support that they need?
My honourable friend is right to highlight just how important it is that all of our children have strong speech and language skills. That's why this government will roll out early language interventions to make sure that all of our children get support at the earliest possible point, including extending the Nuffield early language intervention for this academic year, because it is so important that we make a difference when our children are young.
Joe Morris.
Thanks, Secretary of State, for her answers so far. People in my constituency of Houghton, one of the largest in the country, routinely tell me of the struggle they have to allow their children to access the support that they need and to access the education they're entitled to. Will she or one of her ministers meet with me to discuss the challenges of accessing SEND education in such a rural constituency?
My honourable friend, as the first ever Labour MP for Hexham, will be a champion of our rural communities across the country. I'd be more than happy to meet with him, or my right honourable friend will be able to meet with him to discuss this important area of concern that I know many members wish to discuss.
Graham Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Secretary of State for her answer and personal commitment to creating a fairer funding system for children with special educational needs, in which light she will forgive me if I mention that the East Riding has the lowest allocation to the high needs block of any local authority in England. And having heard so many people genuinely committed in the past to a fairer system, can I ask the Secretary of State to set out how she will do it, because it's easy to support it in principle. It's very hard to find a way of delivering it in practice.
I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman. I'll make sure that officials engage with him on that point. If there's anything further he would like to share, then I will happily look at that. He is right. This is a difficult area, one that we need to make sure we get right, because I'm determined to deliver a system where all children and young people have every chance and opportunity, and particularly where it comes to support for SEND, we know that we will have to work across the House, I think, to get to a much stronger and better position for our children and families.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. What is the Secretary of State going to do about the capacity crisis that is rapidly emerging as tens of thousands of children are being forced out of independent schools by this government's deeply misguided VAT policy, To the extent, Madam Deputy Speaker, where you have councils like Buckinghamshire, I've got a list of 20 schools with no places whatsoever. Bristol City Council is considering buying places from an independent school to put back in the school on taxpayers' expense a child that has just recently left at the parents' expense.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we were elected on a manifesto to drive high and rising standards in our state schools. The public back our policy. We think it is right that we prioritise investment in our state schools, where the vast majority of our children go to school and where the vast majority of his constituents go to school. I'd suggest he spends a bit more time thinking about their interests.
John Glenn.
I welcome the Secretary of State's commitment to improve the provision of SEND services in schools. But would she recognise that many ordinary, hard-working families make extraordinary efforts to find provision ahead of a formal assessment in independent schools as well? Would she commit to make an assessment of what levels of provision currently exist within the independent sector to satisfy special educational needs? Because it will be material to the solution that she will need to develop.
As my honourable friend has set out, we will make sure that where children have an education, health and care plan, that policy change where it comes to VAT on fees will not affect those children. What I would also say to him is, whilst I do recognise the point he makes, and I do believe that parents have a right to choose where their children go to school, the vast majority of parents in our country who send their children to state school are also ambitious and aspirational for their children as well.
Helen Morgan.
Madam Deputy Speaker, Maria in my constituency has a son who was in a specialist placement, and in October last year that school said they can no longer meet his need. He hasn't been back in full-time education since then, with another head teacher locally telling me that special needs provision in Shropshire is decades behind elsewhere in the country. If she aspires for all children in the country to have their special needs met, how is she going to ensure that it happens in places that are struggling so much with funding, like Shropshire?
I recognise the challenge that the Honourable Lady sets out. A part of it is making sure that our mainstream schools are better able to cater for children with a wide range of needs. I'm very sorry to hear about the experience of her constituent, and I'm sure my right honourable friend will be happy to meet with her or to look into that further to make sure that if there's any action that can be taken to support the family.
Dr Luke Evans.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And in Leicestershire, special educational needs has been a real problem that I've seen in my constituency. The last government made it one of the trailblazers to come together to trial some of the new things that could be done in special educational needs, and we've started to see some progress in that. Would the Secretary of State meet with me and the other Leicestershire MPs to discuss how we can take that forward so we can get better provision for Hinckley and Bosworth and Leicestershire?
The Honourable Gentleman is right to draw attention to any emerging evidence that shows new ways of doing things. As a new government, we are keen to do precisely what he describes just there, in making sure, particularly where it comes to better join-up between health and education, we see faster improvement. I'd be happy to meet with him and Leicestershire colleagues, or my friend might be able to step in.
Josh Babarinde.
Madam Deputy Speaker, too many Eastbourne parents, my mum included, are forced to relentlessly fight to get their children into the school that can best meet their children's special educational needs. This is so often down to a lack of funding. So will the Secretary of State commit to meeting with Eastbourne families, Eastbourne school leaders and myself to hear about the SEND landscape locally and provide the funding that local children with special educational needs need and deserve?
He is right in his characterisation of a system that is adversarial and where so many parents have to fight to get a good education and support for their children. I'd be happy to do so, or perhaps my right honourable friend might be able to take that meeting.
Shadow Minister James Wild.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It was in response to growing demand that the last Conservative government increased the high needs budget to £10.5 billion and put in place a statutory override so that SEND-related deficits didn't overwhelm council budgets. With that set to expire in 2026, what is the Secretary of State's message to local authorities? Is she pushing the Chancellor to extend that protection or for deficits to be written off?
I'm genuinely surprised that the Honourable Gentleman thinks that question is a source of strength. It represents significant failure over 14 years that we ended up in such a desperate position facing our council. We will, of course, look closely at all of this. But what I would say to him is that after 14 years where he will have heard families have been terribly let down by the last government. A period of reflection on his part might be in hand.
Alison Bennett.
Number 9, Madam Deputy Speaker.
This government is breaking down barriers to opportunity by providing young people with the mental health support they need. The Office for Students is providing universities with £15 million this year to improve their mental health and wellbeing support. Our further education student support champion, Polly Harrow, is driving a strategic approach to supporting the mental health for further education students.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for her answer to that question. The Children's Society has found British 15-year-olds are the unhappiest in Europe, and school absences are at record levels, often due to poor mental health or inadequate support for special educational needs. Early intervention is key to tackling mental health issues amongst our children. So, will the Secretary of State agree with me that by putting a mental health professional into every primary and secondary school, we could help end this youth mental health crisis?
I thank the honourable member for her question and for her sincere concern regarding the mental health of children and young people. This government is committed to improving mental health and wellbeing support for all children and young people. It is vital that the right support is available to every young person that needs it, which is why we will provide access to specialist mental health professionals in every school.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As I've mentioned a number of times in this House already, I'm a former teacher, I'm married to a current teacher, and most of my friends are teachers. And I can... Should we please with that? And I can tell you that the mental health of teachers over the last 14 years is at rock bottom. So can I ask what steps her department are going to take, not just to support the mental health and wellbeing of our students, which is really important, but also the mental health and wellbeing of our teachers?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for making it extremely clear that he is a teacher and is teachers within his network, and he is absolutely right to be mentioning the welfare and well-being of professionals and that of teachers. And that is something that I would like to offer him a meeting with the Education Minister to discuss this further.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Every year in the UK, hundreds of teenagers take their own lives. Children as young as 12, like Riley Townsend in the constituency of Ashfield just a few weeks ago, took his own life because of mental health problems. So what more can we do to support our young people through the social care system and the educational system to stop this epidemic?
I thank the honourable member for highlighting this very serious concern. Student suicide is serious and indeed is a concerning matter. In the academic year ending 2020, the suicide rate for higher education students in England and Wales was lower than the general population of the same age group. However, every suicide is tragic, and suicide expert Sir Lewis Appleby is overseeing the National Review of Higher Education Suicides to learn more to prevent suicides. It has seen excellent engagement from the sector, and we report on this.
Lawrence Turner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year there was a 38% increase in the number of CAMHS referrals in Birmingham, while there was also a sharp fall in the number of young people seen within 6 months of a referral. Does she agree that we need much more preventative support in schools and closer working between education and health bodies?
My honourable friend is absolutely right. And this government has committed to recruiting 8,500 additional staff across children and adult National Health Service, mental health services. And this will help to reduce delays, to provide faster treatment, and will help to ease the pressure on busy mental health services. Family hubs are also crucial to providing this.
Shadow Minister Gaga Mahindra.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The previous Conservative government introduced mental health support teams in schools, and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is still being felt on students, particularly regarding mental health. Will the Secretary of State commit to continuing these mental health support teams to ensure that students can access the mental health care that they need?
Yeah.
I thank the Shadow Minister for his question, and as I've already outlined, this government is committed to improving the mental health and wellbeing of children and young people, and we will provide access to specialist mental health professions in every school.
Douglas MacAlister.
Question number 11, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. With permission, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will answer questions 11 and 17 together. As a first step in our mission to break down barriers to opportunity, we'll recruit 6,500 additional teachers. We've kick-started the recruitment campaigns. We've awarded a 5.5% pay award, resetting the relationship with the education workforce. We'll re-establish teaching as an attractive expert profession after years of damage under the previous government.
Douglas MacAlister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This government has promised change in education and made a commitment to raise school standards and increase teacher numbers after 14 years of Tory neglect. Does the Minister agree with me that after 17 years in power, with falling standards, under-resourced schools and a growing attainment gap between the richest and the rest, it's time for change from the SNP's dismal record on education in Scotland?
Breaking down barriers to opportunity is a key mission for this government and for the Scottish Labour Party, and where the SNP has seen attainment gaps widen and child poverty soar, we will transform our education system so that all young people get the opportunities they deserve by driving high and rising standards across our education system. That is the change that this Labour government will deliver.
Marcus Campbell-Savers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many teachers in my constituency welcome the drive to recruit more teachers, but also want the government to recognise the pressures on those already in the profession. Can the Minister confirm what steps her department will be taking to improve teacher retention in constituencies like Penrith and Solway?
I want teachers to not only remain in the profession but to thrive in it, which is why we are listening and we're acting on feedback. The department, alongside school leaders, has developed a workload reduction toolkit and the Education Staff Wellbeing Charter. We will deliver a range of measures to make teaching a better valued and respected profession.
Charles.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I recently visited Herefordshire, Ludlow and North Shropshire College, which provides excellent FE opportunities for students in my constituency. However, there is not parity of funding for teachers in the FE sector compared to the school sector, meaning that post-16 education is now better funded for those pursuing academic courses versus those pursuing vocational courses. Will she roll out the 5.5% pay rise also to teachers in the FE sector so that there is no increase in inequality between academic and vocational educational opportunities?
We accepted the STRB's recommendation of a 5.5% award for teachers and leaders in maintained schools in England from September. It is a substantial award. It does recognise the hard work of our teaching profession. We recognise the challenges in the FE sector also and the issues that the lady outlines, and we will continue to keep this under review because we want to ensure that every child has the best opportunities, whether that's within our school system or within our FE sector also.
Munira Wilson.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Given the very serious recruitment and retention crisis, the new government's focus on this issue is welcome. Yet, as we've heard, the recent pay announcement overlooked teachers who work in colleges who already face an existing pay gap of over £9,000. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have twice the proportion of students from disadvantaged backgrounds in our colleges than in school sixth form, so the recruitment issue is even more pressing here. Why is it that teachers of 16-year-olds in schools deserve a pay rise, but teachers of 16-year-olds in colleges do not?
We recognise the challenges that the Honourable Lady has set out. We are facing an incredibly challenging fiscal position from this government. We have a £22 billion black hole to make up from what we inherited. This is about the opportunities of young people in this country, and we take the issues that the lady outlines incredibly seriously. We will continue to do what we can within the fiscal envelope that we have and within the system that we have inherited, which is why we honoured the recommendations of the STRB review, and we will continue to do what we can in terms of FE as well.
Helen Hayes. Question 14, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for her question and for all the work she has done to stand up for children in social care in recent years. We will champion the ambitions of all children and ensure background is no barrier to success. In our Children's Wellbeing Bill, we will set out our plans to raise standards for all children in social care and will ensure they are supported to thrive.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The dropout rate from university for care experienced students is 38%, compared with just 6% for non-care experienced young people. As thousands of students are arriving at university for the first time this week, what steps is the Minister taking to ensure there is a consistent package of support for care experienced students at every university to help them overcome the barriers they too often face and to ensure that university is a place where they feel welcome and can thrive?
I thank my honourable friend for her question and the passion in which it was delivered as well. I recently spoke to Children and Young People's Advisory Group, and they were able to tell me some of the challenges that they face at university, and even in some cases not even being informed about the option of university itself, which is quite shocking. We are committed to providing the best university experience for care leavers. Access to higher education should be based on ability and attainment and not background. But too many children across our country do not get the chance to succeed, and the previous government could have done much more. We will act to address the persistent gaps in the levels of access and positive outcomes for care experienced young people. We have issued guidance to universities on supporting care experienced young people and introduced statutory financial support, including a £2,000 bursary. But after 14 years, there is still so much more to do.
Dan Carden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. 16, please.
The Children's Wellbeing Bill will be introduced as soon as parliamentary time allows. The bill will aim to put children and their wellbeing at the centre of the education and children's social care systems and make sure that every child has a fulfilling childhood, enabling them to succeed and thrive.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm grateful to the Minister. I know from visiting schools in my Walton constituency that some of the most difficult challenges teachers face often come from the difficult socio-economic challenges of the area spilling over into the school. So I welcome the government's focus on children's wellbeing, and I think most important to my constituents will be the rollout of free breakfast clubs. So could the Minister tell me a little bit about how and when they'll be rolled out?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. Breakfast clubs are about more than just food. They provide opportunities for children to play, to learn and to socialise at the start of the school day. This government is giving parents more choice in childcare, supporting families with the cost of living crisis. Our plans for breakfast clubs will remove barriers to opportunity by ensuring every primary school age child, no matter their circumstances, is well prepared for school.
Lovely. We're now moving on to topicals, where the questions will be short and the ministerial responses will be snappy. Tim Rocker.
Question 1, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as we start the new academic year, I want to say thank you to all staff working across education and to wish all learners the best for the year ahead. It will be the mission of this new government to break down barriers to opportunity, to ensure that where you're from doesn't determine what you can go on to achieve, and that every child has the best start in life. We launch our mission against a backdrop of many inherited challenges: a childcare pledge without a plan for delivery, a crumbling schools estate, a school attendance crisis, large attainment gaps, falling apprenticeship starts and training opportunities. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm determined to turn this around. We will drive high and rising standards across education, from early years right through to adult learning.
Tim Rocker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Across the Macclesfield area we have fantastic schools, but the legacy of 14 years of Conservative mismanagement means they're some of the lowest funded in the country. Will ministers meet with me and discuss how we can turn this situation about and fund our schools properly?
I know my honourable friend cares deeply about the life chances of children in Macclesfield and across Cheshire East. I'd be happy to meet with him to discuss this matter further.
David Hines.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we share her good wishes to all for the new term and the new year. But does she recall that last time they were in office, not only did England tumble down the world education rankings, we ended up the only country in the developed world where the literacy and numeracy of recent school leavers was worse than the generation about to retire. If she continues to follow the same failed Labour approach, this time does she expect a different result?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the right honourable gentleman, as a former minister in the department, knows all too well that he and others were cautioned about how they should be using data. When you look at the raw numbers, under the last Conservative government, standards in reading were going down, standards in maths down, and in science too. 1 in 4 children not reaching the required standard at the end of primary school. 1 in 5 young people persistently absent from our schools. We will drive high and rising standards right across the academic subjects, but we will also make sure that all of our young people have a range of opportunities from music, sport, art and drama, not just those parents who are able to afford it, all of our children.
Ian Lavery. Ian?
Sorry. Thanks very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the new school year begins, there's still far too many students in my constituency of Blyth and Ashton who have been unable to secure a school place of their choice. Does my honourable friend agree with me that the school's allocation policy needs a desperate overhaul, and many people believe it's unfit for purpose? And can she say to this House what steps the government is taking to address this extremely important issue?
I thank the honourable gentleman, and we recognise the challenges that are raised in his question, which is why the government will introduce changes to the required require state-funded schools to cooperate with local authorities on admissions on place planning, and local authorities have a responsibility to allocate all applicants a school place on National Offer Day. And if children in his local area are still without places, then I would be happy to meet with him and to support him in resolving these issues.
Munira Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Disadvantaged pupils between 16 to 19 are likely to be up to 4 grades behind their more affluent peers, and we know that funding drops by about a third at 16, yet the 16 to 19 tuition fund was axed in July and the pupil premium has never applied to this age group. So if the Secretary of State is serious about smashing the glass ceiling, will she consider increasing funding targeted at this particular group?
I share the Honourable Lady's concern about making sure that we target funding in ways that it is most effective. It's why I have said that my #1 priority is making sure that we support children and young people at the earliest possible point with a real commitment around early education and childcare, because that is the single biggest way that we can make sure that our children arrive at school really well prepared and stop those gaps opening up as they progress through education.
Helen Hayes.
Deputy Speaker, the early years sector is facing very significant challenges in delivering the rollout of an expanded childcare offer promised by the last government, and they consistently cite the inability to recruit and retain staff as the biggest difficulty. Can the Minister confirm when the government plans to publish the promised workforce strategy for the early years, and what opportunities there will be for the sector to have their say?
May I thank my honourable friend for all the hard work she did in opposition on these important issues. This government sees early education as more than just childcare. It is central to our mission to give every child the best start in life. We recognise the inherited challenges around workforce, both in recruitment and retention, and over the coming weeks and months, this government will set out plans for reform, beginning with a complete reset with the sector so that the workforce feels supported and valued.
Charlie Dewhurst.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As was alluded to by my right honourable friend, the member for Beverley and Holderness, children with SEND in some urban local authorities receive 3 times more funding than they do in the East Riding of Yorkshire. Will the Secretary of State or her Minister meet with myself and East Riding colleagues so we can secure a fairer future for our local children?
As the Secretary of State has set out in extensive responses to extensive questions on this issue of the inherited challenge in the SEND system, we recognise the issues that the Honourable Gentleman is raising and would be happy to meet with him and his colleagues that surround his local authority to discuss it further.
Julia Buckley.
Speaker, will the Secretary of State join me in congratulating Shrewsbury College's group in my constituency for yet another excellent round of results this summer, with A-level pass rates over 98% and 210 vocational students achieving a triple distinction. A superb institution in our rural area working to drive up engagement in and standards for vocational qualifications, the bedrock of our industrial strategy and central to the government's mission to break down the barriers to opportunity. Yeah. Will she join me in celebrating their success and assure them of parity of esteem with their academic school counterparts, and perhaps come and book a visit?
Further education is at the forefront and centre of unlocking opportunity, and I will, of course, join my honourable friend in congratulating the Shrewsbury College Group on their excellent results.
Caroline Varden. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Minister, schools in Devon are missing out on £23.5 million a year due to the national funding formula. That's the equivalent of 450 full-time teachers across the county. Will the Minister meet with me to discuss how Devon school children are missing out, particularly those living in the most deprived areas?
I thank the honourable gentleman, the honourable lady, my apologies, and recognise the concerns that she's raising. The government intends to take time to consider the various funding formula that the department and the local authorities currently use to allocate funding for schools, because it is really important that we have a fair education funding system that directs funding to where it is needed, and I would be happy to meet with her to discuss the particular challenges in her area.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Steiner School, with its nurturing and therapeutic pedagogy, is most challenged by the VAT policy, yet enables many children to access school who have anxiety or otherwise wouldn't be in education. Would she meet with me to discuss my report on the impact of the VAT policy and find ways that we can keep the school open and the children in education?
We expect private schools will want to continue to demonstrate wider public benefit through the provision of means-tested bursaries and through partnerships with state-funded schools after these changes are made. As this is a taxation matter, HM Treasurer are leading the implementation of this policy and have published a technical note about the proposed changes on the 29th of July and will confirm their plans at budget. I would encourage all private schools to engage with this process, and I'd happily meet with my honourable friend to discuss her report.
Claire Young.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I draw members' attention to my register of interests, as I'm still a South Gloucestershire councillor. As last Thursday's PAC debate showed, children with SEND are being let down. Many local authorities are currently locked into safety valve agreements with the Department for Education that were put into place pre-pandemic, with targets that are unrealistic and no longer reflect the situation on the ground. Will the Secretary of State agree to review these agreements and to meet with me and local leaders to discuss the situation in South Gloucestershire?
The honourable lady raises a concern that many have raised, and as she will have seen, the level of concern around the special educational needs inheritance that this government has taken on, and we will continue to current safety valve agreements will continue to operate as they are agreed, but we will look at the use of safety valve agreements going forward. But I would be happy to meet with the honourable lady to discuss the particular challenges in her area.
Uma Kamaran, please.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I take the opportunity to welcome my right honourable friend to her place and to welcome students across Stratford and Bow back to school as they start their new term? The Minister understands as well as I do the struggles that some parents have getting their children back to school, especially those with mental health and special educational needs. Can the Minister outline what steps she is taking to ensure that school really is the best place for every child?
Yeah, I recognise the important point that my friend raises. I know that many parents are doing everything that they can, often in very challenging circumstances, to support their children into school. And for my part, I can assure her that this government will be doing everything that we can to make sure that children find welcoming, safe environments at school, with better mental health support, breakfast clubs in our primary schools, a broader, richer curriculum, and also more support around SEND in mainstream settings.
Patrick Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Reports in the press a couple of weeks ago that the Secretary of State took meetings with teaching unions where they asked the Secretary of State, or made the argument, that multiplications times tables should be taken off the national curriculum. Considering our stratospheric success in PISA ratings in numeracy, thanks to changes introduced by this government, can she give us a 100% cast-iron guarantee that she's not going to dumb down the curriculum in this country and she's not going to take times tables off the national curriculum?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'd caution the honourable gentleman about believing everything he reads in the press. Times tables are an important part of our system, high and rising standards. We will drive that from government. What I will tell him is, rather than picking pointless fights, avoidable industrial action, you will see a different relationship from this government as we work in partnership with teachers, school leaders and support staff to deliver better life chances for all of our children.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the last set of PISA results under the Conservatives showed standards in England's schools going backwards. Backwards in reading. Maybe they should listen. Backwards in reading, backwards in maths, backwards in science. Does my right honourable friend agree that that is far from a record to be proud of?
He's absolutely right, and they don't like it, but it's absolutely true. And what I would also add, where it comes to the concerns my honourable friend has raised, is that we see stark attainment gaps where it comes to the differences between what our poorest children and our more affluent children are able to achieve, and that blights the life chances in children in his constituency in Gateshead, and we are determined to make progress on that, unlike the last government.
Iqbal Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I congratulate and welcome the Secretary of State and her team to their place. In my constituency of Dewsbury and Backley, children are being unenrolled after 20 days of absence, even when there is a valid and compassionate reason for their leave. Will the Secretary of State commit to review this harmful and punitive rule, which is leaving children in my constituency without a school for many months? And will she take steps to make the necessary changes to protect the children and their right to an education?
I thank the honourable member for his question. I'm very happy to meet with him about the points that he raises, but attendance and off-rolling are serious issues that we take very seriously in government, and we will be setting out more policies about these matters in due course.
Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The previous government promised to bring forward a register of children not in school. I welcome the measures taken by this government, but can the Minister update me on the next steps to bring forward the register?
This government has no time to waste if we are to fix the foundations of our country after 14 years of decline. We will legislate for the register of children not in school through the Children's Wellbeing Bill, which will be introduced as soon as parliamentary time allows. This bill will support this government's work to ensure every child has the best start in life.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can the Secretary of State confirm that the funding announced on the 9th of May by the previous Conservative government for a brand new SEND school in the county of Buckinghamshire is in no way, shape or form under review, and that we will get that new school in Buckinghamshire?
I thank the honourable member for his question. Ensuring schools and colleges have the resources and buildings that they need is a key part of our mission to break down barriers to opportunity and give every young person the best start in life. We are committed to improving the condition of the estate through the department's annual funding, continuing the school rebuilding programme and fixing the problems of RAC.
Final question, David Baines.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. At the start of the new school year, can I just wish all teachers and school staff and children in St Helens North the very best for the year ahead? Does my honourable friend agree with me that as part of the curriculum review, which I warmly welcome and look forward to, that we need an education system and a curriculum, particularly in primary schools, with much more focus on learning through play, on oracy and on multisensory movement and recording of learning. That be to the benefit of children, not just with SEND, but all pupils.
The Curriculum and Assessment Review, led by experts, will focus on the evidence, what we know from here and abroad about how we best help children of all ages to learn and all abilities to, including those with special educational needs. And I'm sure the review will want to investigate different approaches to the primary curriculum, including those which he mentions, but I wouldn't want to preempt the review's conclusions and recommendations.
Right, that is the end of education questions. I'm sorry I couldn't fit everybody in. You'll have better luck next time. I'll give everybody a moment to swap their seats. We'll be moving on to the first urgent question.